It takes a dark turn, but I think I have a good sense of what's going to happen here.
Okay.
Leading into a trap. They're not going to let Trump get anywhere near the White House. They're not going to let him. So the goal is, have him be the nominee, and by hell or high water, one way or another, they're not going to have him. They're not going to let him.
What about the other two?
It's not them. It's within our own party.
Okay, within our own party.
Yes, it is. Hey, look at the people who voted to keep Trump off the ballot. Who are they putting up? Losses to keep him off the ballot. Larry Fink to Reid Hoffman. Who are they propping up? It's a game. And I'm in this to make sure that doesn't happen. They want it to be two horse race, eliminate him, put up actually the Trojan horse for the Republican Party that keeps the war machine humming and keeps the restrictions on speech and the censorship agenda. Get it done. Who needs Democrats when you get it done through the Republican Party?
Okay.
So you do the math.
Okay.
You do the math on that. That's what's coming.
Hey, well, that guy on the right was far too close to his face. That's all I could tell you. I don't know that guy. The other guy was so close to his face as to make me very uncomfortable.
Well, there you go.
I don't know what that guy was doing on the right of him, but
I'm not sure. It could be a forced perspective issue that he wasn't really that close. It just felt that way. But
I mean, he's not wrong, Eric. I mean, I've said this on the show for over a year that their game was to eliminate the opposition, give him the nomination, and then go to work, because then the people who are running as alternatives to Trump will be eliminated. This is from the other side. He's talking about internally. It said, by the way, it's, instead of Larry Fink, it said Larry Think in the translation.
Oh, I know. It also said Reid
well,
Hoffman
people may not know who he is, Larry Fink. I mean,
but let's talk about it. I mean, because he's
Larry
significant.
Fink, obviously one of the three Stooges, Larry Fink. Oh, look, I got Hunley to laugh early in the show. Put one up on the big board, honey. We got Hunley laughing 38 seconds into the episode.
There you go. We'll put a marker behind you.
Yeah, we'll put it up there on the big board. We used to have an old English teacher, Mr. Dunkley, who when it was just a free fire zone in this class. And when we got a joke against Dunkley, he put our name. We had our names on the board, and he put one up, and he go, Grobert for another star, and he put it up on the board that we got one over on him as a joke.
Oh, that's cool.
It was pretty funny. One time he pulled down the window shades in the room, and we had put the world map on the shades itself. So when he pulled down the shades, the world map was on there, and he just went, "Oh, you guys got me again! Oh my god!" And it's just a series of hijinks in Dunkley's class.
I love that. I mean, I love that he actually encouraged you.
Dude, he was great. He really gave as good as he got. He was not thin-skinned, and the greatest moment was we had a guy named David Dinkins. We were all in A-Track. He was the only black guy in A-Track level in high school. And there was another guy named Orlando Grant, who was the other black guy. And I was turning around talking to Orlando Grant, and I got called out for talking to Orlando. Both of us, the teacher just lost his shit, started screaming at us. And Orlando Grant, as fast as I could remember, took a pencil between his fingers, put it up to his eye with phony vampire blood running down his hand, and he just screamed, Grobert stabbed me in the eye. And I was like, what? It was so fast. And they yelled, get to the nurse's room. All he wanted to do was get out of class. And he just ran out of the room with blood streaming down his hand, yelling, Grobert stabbed me in the eye, with the pencil like lodged in like this, Eric. Like, here's the pencil. And I was in shock because he didn't tell me it was going to happen. And he came back at the very end of the class. He had put some gauze and duct tape on his eye, and he went, oh, Jesus, thank you. Thank you for letting me out of there. And then the bell rang. We all left. Orlando Grant going into the Hall of Fame, greatest high school pranks of all time.
No kidding. Notice he left your ass in the classroom.
Dude, the teacher's just glaring at me. And I go, I didn't do anything. And I was giving it to Merritt.
You're like, I'm confused.
I was completely baffled by Grant's move. That one, absolutely great.
What the hell happened to me?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I'd like to say Happy New Year, but as we were talking about before the show, I'm kind of going, I'm terrified of 2024. I'm like,
I'm never leaving my house.
Yeah, I just want to leave 2023. We can do another 12 months of this year. Hasn't been the best year, but hasn't been the worst year. I don't know. 2024 just it feels like it's going to be a complete nightmare.
Yep.
So make me feel better. Let's talk about other darker years like 68 and 72. And
Yeah, that's what I was telling Greg
pill.
yesterday on the show. Greg Boudel, News Talk, out of Alabama. I was saying, he was worried. He was doing the same thing you're doing. He said he was very worried about 2024. And I said, look, it can't possibly reach the level of 1968. You had Martin Luther King killed, Robert Kennedy killed, the president quits. We have a war in Vietnam. You had riots in the streets. Ghettos were burning. A Vietnam War out of control. The Chicago Democratic Convention got overrun. I mean, it can't possibly get to that level. But then again, as everyone now knows, it easily can.
Yeah. And even then, with the insanity, we didn't have literally state after state after state rolling around to pull a freaking candidate off.
How about this woman in Maine? She's like just some dingbat lefty.
Yeah.
No, just some random woman. She's obviously got the check in the mail. She's an ideologue. They keep, remember, I said this to you a year ago, which we learned in Arizona. 2 Achilles heels that they found. One was district attorneys in urban areas. The second one was secretaries of state, that they were able to count the votes with secretaries of states. And Soros, the Open Society Foundation, found 2 vulnerable, probably the Obama people pointed out to him. But the secretaries of states have all been invariably women, all have been batshit crazy leftist broads. And the other thing with the DAs, mostly men, but you do have Fox in Chicago and some other women scattered around the country, Gascon here and a cat in Philly. So those 2 incredible positions. March 5th, there's an election here for DA, among other things, ballot initiatives and other crap. So we're going to see what happens. This guy, Gascon, has a 13% approval rating. And the guy who is running against him was on TV the other day, plugging himself. He's a Democrat, but of course, nobody else could win unless you're a member of the Communist Party or the Third Reich. You have to swear allegiance to either one. So this guy seemed like a moderate Democratic cop kind of guy. And he said, the guy Gascon has a 13% approval rating. How could he possibly win? And he says, well, he had that during the recall and he won that. He said there's a lot of money that's going to come in from out of state, out of town, out of this world to support the Marxist agenda. How there's nobody's stopping this is another question. But that being said, there's going to be a bunch of different elections in March.
Well, okay, but think about this too. This idiot in Maine or whatever, from what I understand, she doesn't even have a legal degree. So this is one person.
A mere technicality.
Right. Well, one person just arbitrarily says, nope, you're off. You think about that for a second.
Well, it's their hubris too. It's their sheer hubris. They don't find that to be bizarre. They look at her as an American hero. It's the reverse for them. They're saying like that one woman stood against this evil man who grabbed him by the pee and did evil stuff and was Hitler and was a fascist or whatever he did. She at least is ready to save democracy. And when they say save democracy, they mean save Marxism and socialism. Just remember that when they say democracy, their interpretation, like they've changed the meaning of every other word in the Funk and Wagnalls, democracy to them means saving socialism. I just want to remind people of that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, sure. Democracy is what I want.
That's right. But I'm saying all that stuff, democracy dies in darkness. It's socialism dies in darkness.
Sure.
Not democracy, not our interpretation or anybody's rational interpretation of democracy dies in darkness. It's socialism dies in darkness.
Well, speaking of dying in darkness, congratulations. We are demonetized.
There to go, up on the big board. That's early in the game. YouTube just sitting there. YouTube monkeys just sitting there. I'm on it, Chief. I'm on it.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Well, I even have this. I haven't played this for a while, but it goes from way back.
Well, if you feel like helping us out and getting off your fat asses, you could either join Locals, which Hunley is going to put up the thing now, or you could go for free, but it would help to join. because it offsets the losses every week. We get killed every single week. By the time Eric goes through the thing with them and they remonetize us, all the ads are gone. I didn't understand this at first. Eric had to explain it to me. This is their game. It's not intentional. They do a manual check on us and they go, oh, yeah, you're cool. You're cool. But by then, all the viewers have already seen the show. That's a game that they're playing. We're on to their game. We know it. That's why we're on Rumble. That's why we're on Locals. And if you subscribe to Locals, it would really help us. Or you can use Venmo and PayPal and help us out in that area too. Or you can push the subscription button, which we hardly ever mention anymore because we hate their guts so much. But we could get bigger and become a dominant force in the American League. And then become a little bit more untouchable. They seem to beat up on little guys because they're cowards, right? I mean, the big channels, right? You've seen this. I mean, Eric explained this to me. The big mega channels have a lot more muscle. So these are little girls and little spineless incel guys sitting at a keyboard. And where's the capital of this thing? Right here, right? Where's YouTube's capital?
Silicon Valley.
Right. So they're up there going, look, they said this again. Let's get them, boys. Woo! You know. They're not going to do it to big channels.
Yeah, and I've explained it to you. I actually can see it in my own channels. I have 4 channels. So Layback News.
Don't mention 4 channel because they'll get you for that.
Oh no, not 4. Yeah. Anyway, Layback News, which is a much smaller channel, has a freaking it's a warning on the channel, but next thing's a strike and a suspension, and that channel is a quarter of the size of this one. So it's a much easier target, and boom, they remove that tough titty. And the fun part is, of course, you file an appeal, and
it's like the Colorado Supreme Court is the appeal. You go before this 7-person board of liberal Democrats, and they vote 4-3 to reject the appeal.
Exactly. Only they're quicker at it, and then now it's like you hit the button, you go look at your email. Oh, a new email from YouTube. Appeal denied.
Appeal denied. Yeah.
So, but welcome to our circumstances, and back to the subject of Trump. I mean, good God, we're talking about Oregon. There's flack there. New Hampshire, Minnesota, Michigan. Apparently, he prevailed. The Supreme Court there said, never mind. I'm not going to bother.
Yeah. He's up by a lot in Michigan.
True. I never thought I'd actually say to his credit in the same sentence as Gavin Newsom. But to his credit, Gavin Newsom said, no, we beat people at the ballot box.
That was merely propaganda. I mean, that woman works for him, lieutenant governor. He owns her. He put her there. He's saying that while she's mechanically behind the scenes trying to pull the legal mechanisms to get him off the ballot. If you got the printed version of the ballot so far, the Republican is left off. There's no Republican thing to vote for party preference, just so you know. Despite what Hero Boy is saying, they have other ways to do this. As somebody put on Twitter today, you'll go to the ballot box and his name won't be there in California, November 4th, and you'll go, what the fuck? And they'll say, oh, we made a mistake. So it doesn't matter what Newsom says. They will do it without going to the courts or without doing anything. They'll just leave it off, bro, and let the chips fall where they may. Everybody on the right, and God bless you all, there's a question of trust and legacy and honor that the other side doesn't recognize. And it's frustrating to me, and Eric was trying to explain it to me during the week, that the other side will not take the gloves off no matter what. They would rather get shanked in the shower 75 times before they fight back. And it's just quite frustrating, to be honest with you.
Well, it's a wiring. If somebody,
I know, I see it.
If you don't think in that manner, it's kind of like you've dealt with a lot of addicts, and you've had to explain that to me. Like, I think you even said that drug addicts are even worse than alcoholics, but the only thing you can count on is a lie. Or something like
there's a saying, if their mouth is moving, they're lying. I mean, an alcoholic will lose his wallet, it'll be in a blackout, but a junkie will steal your wallet and help you look for it. So there is a difference. There's a difference between a junkie and an alcoholic. Everybody knows that in the recovery movement. But that being said, apparently Matthew Perry, from what I read this morning in the Daily Mail, was having all kinds of girls from a website deliver him Oxycontin. He wrote the memoir about being sober while he was on Oxycontin and was never sober. The whole thing was a lie. I thought he had moments of clarity there, but according to some of the girls who would visit him from these dating sites, he would ask them to bring, here's the article I was referring to, reclusive Matthew Perry. He would have them bring over oxys. And even though he had a sober companion and a nurse, dude, I mean, it's so easy to break through because in a private home, you can't really search them. If you're in a rehab, you can't visit somebody without being searched. You literally will get strip searched if you visit someone who is a patient in a rehab. But at home, there's nothing you could do. I mean, the sober companion can't really do anything. And, there are times when they'll just leave it on the window ledge of the bedroom the person's living in. And then the guy just opens the window and it's there in a private house. But there's all different ways. But apparently this guy, according to this article, he didn't breathe a sober breath for more than a short period of time and wrote this entire memoir loaded.
God, that's sad.
It's just dark. I mean, I was attacked for saying this about his fans. I don't give a shit about his fans. I knew the guy. To me, he's just another guy. I mean, I don't, you don't look at somebody that way out here. It's just like the guy was on a show. Okay, what's the deal? I just know him from knowing him. And, he could have gotten this like anyone else, but he didn't want it like other people, and he's dead. But the damage that it does by lying repeatedly that you're clean and sober and writing memoirs and going on tour and then dying, his fans who are not addiction savvy will just simply say that these recovery programs don't work. That's the damage and I try to explain this to people to no avail. It doesn't matter who he is. It's when you're that famous, you will have a residue effect of affecting fans who may be in need of recovery. And they will simply say, well, Matthew Perry spent $26 million on recovery. It didn't work for him. Why should I even bother? I'm just a kid who works at a supermarket. That's the damage. And that is scurrilous and uncalled for and really, dark.
I just ran across a video the other day. I don't know if this is directly related, but it just makes me think of it. I feel like it's sad, and 100 people just like him, probably, and that's part of the issue.
Like Matthew Perry.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a guy right now who Cher's son, who she's had to try to get conservancy of now because his father died. That's Greg Allman, and left him a separate line of funding every month, and he was going to the Chateau Marmont, checking in. Burning through the money and then just using it all up. It would last a week. And then he was wandering homeless through West Hollywood, Elijah, and who I know very, very well. And the mother has now gone to court to take over his life. I mean, this is a guy who had a million chances and will now have his life run by his mother. But she's just trying to save his life. And, that's where it goes. And if you have that money coming in, if you're a celebrity kid or a celebrity type who has funding for these operations, as Sam Kinison famously once said, half jokingly, if you have $100,000 in the bank left, you don't have a problem yet. I mean, that was Kinison. Kinison, of course, died on the way to Vegas in a head-on collision loaded. So it didn't really work out for Kinison either, although he died with a chip in his pocket, an AA chip. That was a sad story by itself. But Elijah had, every opportunity on the planet Earth, and he's still alive, thank God. But I mean, barely, from what I've understood the past. And he, went to rehab for like 7-8 months out of state and came out brand new, clean and sober, like a whole new human being. But then relapsed and went back to being basically a homeless street urchin, burning through his father, Greg Allman's money through that trust, every single month that it came in. His mother, I think, had him on like a $5,000 a month limit, rightfully so, and she paid his credit card bills or whatever. But he chafed at that bit for so long. I mean, his dream was to, hopefully she would die of old age and he would inherit No, I'm serious. I mean, he was obsessed about it, and hopefully, but the mother just died. The mother of Cher. Cher's like 80. The mother just passed away. This is a long lineage, long living family. She may live another 25 years, unless Trump is reelected. Then she's going to move to Canada, and we'll never see her again. Along with Barbara Streisand, the two of them will move to Canada.
Do you think that could be the same situation? Would you speculate with Britney Spears?
I've said this. I've argued with Dr. Drew about it. When they removed her conservancy, I said she's finished. She's finished. She can't operate on her own. There's going to be people picking her off. I assume she's using meth again, and she's back doing crazy crap. I mean, there's a reason that judges grant these conservancies. The fans go, "Oh, how dare you!" But she will be dead or in rehab, I think, within a year.
You know, there have been videos of her coming out doing these weird psychotic dances, and then dances with knives going around. And,
she showed up one time when I was running this rehab in Malibu. This rehab I started, luxury rehab, and she showed up with her mother to check out the place like they were checking out of college, and she wanted to know. The mother wanted to look at the menu. She wanted to the thread counts of the sheets. And we weren't selected in that process. They went, I guess, to some other rehab. I don't know where she went, but they were looking at this place like she was going to college instead of a life-saving, device.
Oh, that is sad.
It's sad. No, it's definitely sad.
Well, here we go. And then, by the way, if you're already feeling under threat because you have a gas stove,
oh my God,
don't worry. There's more to come. We now have more eco regulations coming down, and they're targeting the rest of your kitchen.
Right. They love that kitchen stuff because it's democratic, crazy leftist women. That's the commonality here. Look at the threads, people. These are women in the kitchen who don't have kids, are not even married, or they have like some phony husband. That's who's running this crazy crap.
I can't understand. Well, this is the problem. Sometimes it's difficult to understand the logic. Sometimes people are just not logical. That's something I learned a long time ago. And I didn't know it until I was an adult because I had never run across crazy.
Yeah.
I know. I met people, and there were people I hated, people I liked, all kinds of different, feelings toward them. But I had never run across until I was an adult people who are genuinely effing crazy, where you could speak to them logically and you assume I'm laying out all this logic, and you might as well be speaking Spanish to them instead of English. And they respond, they look sober at you, but they literally don't get it. And
I've always gone by this rule of thumb. Women are definitely, or this is generally speaking, women are smart and neurotic, and men are dumber and grounded. Between the two sexes. That's been my rule of thumb. I think other sociologists have even commented on it, but I've always believed that. By the way, speaking of that, somebody just, the British apparently did a study in 2010 or 2011 of Hamas, and it turns out if you have an IQ of 72, you're mentally retarded. Apparently, the study they did of Hamas's soldiers, they had an average IQ of 68. And I went, what did they just say? I had to rewind this news thing that was just on the news. I went, what? Their IQ is 68. Their average IQ of the Hamas soldiers. And I went, oh, that's really explains a lot,
Well, they're obviously manipulated by others, and probably some of the IQ things can be shaped by malnutrition, etc. And I'm not going to sit there and pretend that life is great in that area. It's not. There's probably a lot of starvation, a lot of malnutrition, things like that, which is contributing, and then they get used by others who aren't even in the country. They
opened fire on their own people who were trying to get the aid off of the trucks the other day. So they took the aid themselves back to their own warehouses. Multiple news reports showing that. But yeah, I mean, these people who are voting for them, again, I mean, if you look at Netanyahu's desires, it sounds remarkably similar to Putin with Ukraine. Denazification, cleaning out the military, and deprogramming them. And in fact, I've been reading RT, and RT, the news channel, and Putin and Lavrov said the other day, he's been speaking to the Israelis and to Netanyahu, and they're on the same page regarding Ukraine and their battle. They said, Lavrov said, very similar battles.
Yeah, my worry about that though is that even possible? You know, because some could push back and say, well, you're asking for the moon. Can you even get halfway there?
Well, they're kind of asking for the moon by saying we can't sit down and discuss it with you unless you're willing to be annihilated. And
I agree.
Right.
Egypt even came in with a plan I saw, and they said, look, how about all conflict stops and new elections start?
No, we can't have that. Elections. You know, what Netanyahu was talking about was the denazification of Germany after World War II. Mm-hmm. That's what he was referring to when he was talking about deprogramming and taking away the brainwashing. It was a denazification program of Hamas, having a buffer zone, eliminating the Hamas leadership, and having free and fair elections in that area. I know it's too much for Hamas because it's quite troublesome. That would involve small d democracy, which is their arch nemesis.
Well, I mean, again, though, they're not even there. They're in Qatar.
Not only are they in Qatar, as somebody pointed out, they're going to retain the last hostages for themselves. In other words, they're not going to give up the final hostages. Those are their hostages, so they can escape. I didn't even think about that. If there's 50 hostages left, they're going to keep them for their own protection.
Yeah,
that's sick. Yeah. That's some sick shit.
Oh, I mean, it's to be expected.
Movie tip of the week: Raid on Entebbe, by the way, would be a great movie to see this weekend.
Okay, well, while we're on movie tips of the week, and I don't know why I was stupid enough to do it.
What?
You put out a tweet and you said, I watched Barbie, so you don't have to.
Woo!
I went ahead and watched it last night because I was like, you know what? I should be a team player.
Thank you. Thank you.
I didn't make it through all of it.
Oh, come on. You're a weak man. Stop it. Right. You better go back and watch it again.
No, I will not.
You're so weak, Unley. I watched the whole entire thing.
No, well, that's good. So you can tell everybody what a shit show that thing is.
Well, it's not a shit show if you're on their side. I mean, it is a cosmetically child-proof induced propaganda lesson, you know, for 2.5 hours of feminism and denunciation of men in all sorts of childlike ways through the Barbie legend. You know, it's terrifying. I mean, at one point, there's a wheelchair Barbie. I don't know if you saw her. Did you see the wheelchair Barbie?
Oh, yeah.
Did you see the Barbie with the hook hand?
And the pregnant Barbie and the
pregnant Barbie,
heavy Barbie and the
Wow, man, there was so much going on in there. Who knows what kind of Easter eggs are buried in that shit show? You know, I mean, whoa.
Some of the graphics and the filming, I have to say, were very well done.
Absolutely.
Top of the line cinematography.
They're going to get nominated for set design. I mean, it's brilliantly designed. But again, like we said on this show, Animal Farm, the animation that the CIA put the most money of any animated movie in history into the British production, was a Class A production. And that's what they do. They don't make shit shows. They pour money into these things, the deep state, and Barbie is one of them.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, I think that's going to be up for Best Picture. It checks all the boxes, because it does have all the woke shit you could ever ask for in the movie, and it's so progressive, so forward.
I don't think there's been a more progressive, crazy movie I've ever seen in my life. But that being said, I did immediately watch after that the Ricky Gervais special on Netflix, which is highly recommended. Ricky Gervais kills it, and he's not a foul-mouthed comic like a Chappelle or a Martin Lawrence or that. He doesn't really use foul language. He has foul ideas that they don't like. But the send up, it's a woke show, and he keeps saying that he's woke, and that's like the theme that runs through it. There's a couple of things you're not going to understand, neither did I, that are British things that I could only hope our British friends can explain. But nevertheless, highly recommend the British comic Ricky Gervais Netflix special.
He's old school, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Really, really old school. And things like, what was that? The Make-A-Wish Foundation. He's like, why don't you wish you were well?
Yeah. I mean, there's some good stuff in there. There's some really good
Just
stuff.
dark.
Right. There's some dark stuff. Anybody laughs it off himself. You know, he uses multiple voices to play the people who are attacking him to offset the damage of it. Highly recommend it. There's very little comedy out there. And it's why the deep state and why the woke people fear comedy so effing much. Because in a span of 90 minutes, he dismantles the entire woke culture. They can't respond to a special. They can't flood and heckle a special that's been filmed in a theater. They have to sit there powerless and watch it on their own TV with their friends screaming at the screen, which they don't like to do. You know that.
Yeah, I agree. His best moment though was still the Golden Globes.
Oh yeah, well, this show, this is a whole show. So I mean, I would watch this because, you know, there's a guy who he reminds me of who's fucking woke as shit, and it's really, really sad to listen to him. It's two guys. One is Eddie Izzard, who I was a huge fan of, who's now a completely woke douchebag. This guy is a working class version of Eddie Izzard, and the other is Sacha Baron Cohen. Another guy who was, you know, killed as a comic, who was another woke douchebag. I mean, there are guys who are not woke, you know, who are conservatives, like Seinfeld and some others who are conservative comics. Most comics that I've known in my life are conservative. Most comics, because they have to be. They're super smart. They see through bullshit. They have bullshit detectors. There are very, very few woke comics that I've ever met in my life. Most of them, people like Larry Miller and Seinfeld and others, are, even if they're not big C conservative, they're conservative in terms of their political views, because they have that bullshit detector, and that's what cuts through. They could be apolitical, but they see through the bullshit of the left. And
the great Norm Macdonald,
a perfect example. You know. But I'll tell you another film that I'd highly recommend from a new studio called Angel Studios, and it's called The Sound of Freedom. And The Sound of Freedom is at times tough to watch, but it is the story, which I've never seen before, a story like this, about human sex trafficking, and this true story about this cop who goes down and rescues a brother and sister in Mexico from human trafficking. And it's not the greatest movie of all time, but it's a really good movie coming out of this new studio, Christian-based studio called Angel. And it's well worth watching it to learn how this works. And I learned quite a bit about human sex trafficking from watching this movie, which the left will not touch, because the people buying these kids are their benefactors who support the Democratic Party. The people paying for these human sex trafficking, and God knows how many they've gotten across the border. I mean, in the movie, you see them smuggling them in trunks and in cars and stuff like that, and they apprehend them at the border. But they show you, which is what I really appreciate as a journalist, the nuts and bolts of how it works. And I was like, oh, now I get it. I didn't know. It was vague to me of the physics of how this actually worked. This movie shows you a Christian father with I think he's got 5 or 6 kids, going down, and he works with the Department of Homeland Security. And he just says, I got to go deal with this. And he gets some excuse to go down to Tijuana from his boss, and goes to deal with this, and eventually goes to freaking the jungles of Bolivia. It's just crazy, Eric. Just a crazy, well-made film.
It was huge this past summer. Did you know the story behind that too? That the film is done and in the can and shelved, I think, for 4 or 5 years. I don't know if they had to sue to get it out, but Mel Gibson was tied to it to get it out.
I could see that.
And it was. I think ironically, I think Disney actually made it or was behind it in the money, and
Mhm.
then they shelved it, and then it came out. And considering what happened with ABC and that top producer there at ABC who was protected by Rolling Stone and wound up
Mhm.
going down for many, many, many years for the same kind of behavior, if you will. Okay, yeah, people are confirming that yes, it was Disney who had that. So I just thought that was very interesting how they have a film, it's on the shelf, and so they kind of tried to do a stealth release,
Mhm.
and it got so much independent coverage from conservatives, all the different news outlets, things like that, that it really became quite a hit. I think it's made hundreds of millions of dollars, which is great.
Jim Caviezel is the star. It's gotten only 57% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's considered to be a complete failure,
Sure.
critically.
Mhm.
That not that that matters.
Yeah,
I'm
look at
just
the
saying.
audience score.
No, I know. I'm just saying. I'm just saying they're doing everything they can to get you to not watch it. So I wanted to give it a shout out.
I actually think that's great. Rotten Tomatoes is helpful now
Yeah.
because
Oh yeah.
I'm just like, okay, so if it's a 10% critic score, let me look at the audience score. 90%. Okay, great movie. Go see it.
The greatest I ever saw, The Split, and I had to explain this to Dr. Drew, who was with Adam Carolla. We were talking about it. He was talking about the show with Carolla. I explained to Drew that the best was Dinesh D'Souza's first film. It got 1%, zero. I take it back. It got 0 top critics and 100% people's critics. And it was, and Drew was asking me how is that, and I was trying to explain to Drew how this could happen. He was completely baffled, and then he went on with Carolla, and they talked about my analysis of that. I mean, it's owned by Paramount. I mean, Rotten Tomatoes is owned by the studios, and they can do whatever they want. And it's just there for them to do that. But the best split was Dinesh D'Souza's first one, 0 to 100.
Well, like 10 years ago, the guy who created Rotten Tomatoes was a regular on Carolla. So,
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. So they used to have a game, like
wow.
a shtick that they did where they would have to guess what the movie, how it did on Rotten Tomatoes. and whoever got closest would win the game. And they did it, I don't know, once every couple of weeks or so.
Wow.
And then suddenly, I think Rotten Tomatoes got sold. That guy got jettisoned. They played the game a little bit on their own, but you know how that goes.
Yeah, I could see Mel Gibson doing that movie. Another great movie
too.
Yeah, but Gibson is you can't sell him short. I said there's 2 guys you can't sell short in the movie business. One is Mel Gibson in anything, and the second one is Sylvester Stallone. Sylvester Stallone has done an 8-episode thing on Paramount Plus called Tulsa King.
Yeah,
which is absolutely riveting. And it's the people who made The Sopranos. All these different people are involved in this thing who are involved in The Sopranos. The storylines, everything is brilliant. It's well shot. It's just a fascinating episodic. That's my other pick for the week.
Yeah, I'm bummed out though. The guy.
Don't give away the ending. Don't give away.
No. I'm going to talk about that. All right. The guy behind the show is the same guy behind Yellowstone. But
well, they came from The Sopranos originally. Those guys.
Some of them.
Not all of them.
The main writer creator though did Yellowstone. He's on a roll. He's one of the top writers in Hollywood.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the second season's been delayed because I guess Sylvester Stallone is saying, I can't handle the heat in Tulsa. I guess he was dying.
Dude, he's like 80 years old. I mean, look what they're putting him through in this freaking movie. It's insane. I'm looking at him going, this guy's 80 freaking years old, and look what he's doing. People forget. They're looking. I mean, he's obviously, walking testosterone shot.
I was going to say, no, there's no steroids on him whatsoever.
No. He's living and shooting steroids on the lunch break. But holy crap. I mean, he's a walking testament to taking steroids. But it might be just too abusive for him, too brutal physically. Yeah.
It could be. I mean, I don't know if he's going to have to do a different location or figure it out. But yeah, so there's
holy cow.
About that.
I mean, that's great for Tulsa. Tulsa reminds me of like Omaha, Nebraska. It's got this downtown and cities where nobody's on the street. There's no cars. I remember being in Omaha, Nebraska. I go, where is everybody? It looks like be the greatest 2 cities to shoot a post-apocalyptic movie in because there's never anybody on the street. It's just they look empty, even in this series, right, Eric? Remember that white horse is just going down the street. Yeah, there's just a random white horse walking down the street every day. He later purchases the horse, but it's a fascinating episodic.
Oh, our friend Larry from Oklahoma is saying Tulsa's not that bad.
Really? Okay. Compared to what?
I don't. Well, I mean, it can always be worse. I'm sure that Alabama holds its own, and then you can always go over to New Orleans. That isn't a picnic.
Yeah, some of those deep southern places in the summer are just unlivable.
Well, you didn't enjoy your time in Dallas on that one trip.
Which one was that? The first trip?
The first one you went, you were like, it was 114 degrees. I'm dying here.
Oh, in the video, yeah, I'm schwitzing. You could see in the video, dude. I mean, I had to somehow buck it up for the show and just go around and do what I had to do. But holy cow, was it hot!
All right, so we've avoided it for long enough. Let's see our next subject here. The 65 project.
60, dude, you got to get into this. I just learned about this. Okay, so let me just back up about this before you say anything. I'm reading a book called Get Trump by Alan Dershowitz, which I also highly recommend. I don't know how he cranks these books out so fast, Dershowitz, but he goes into the legal problems that Trump has and just completely picks them apart. But he also talks about how they've canceled him personally. And one of the stories that he talks about, Dershowitz, he talks about the 65 project, but he also talks, which I didn't know existed. He also talks about, just as an incident, what they've done to him at his local public library, where he has spoken for what's that?
Really?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I'm going to tell you. Yeah. So his local public library, he has spoken at for over 20 years, once a year, where he gives a seminar, a lecture.
Sure.
And it's usually packed to the gills, right? So he was canceled from giving his speech at the local public library. They said because it's too large. And he says, well, everybody in this town hates my guts, so I don't think anybody's going to show up. And they said, sorry, it's just too much. So he offered all these alternatives. We can have it outside. We can do this. We can do that. And of course, they just said no. And then they took his books off the shelves. And now he's morally debating whether to sue them or not. His own family is telling him not to because he doesn't want to go to war with his own public library.
Sure.
But he comes to the conclusion that he has to morally and politically because it could happen to someone else. They're complete, absolute cowards, the public library. They will not give him an answer. He's going to have to sue them because someone else could be banned from the other side. And he really, for the first time, explains what the animus is to Trump among his own people, right, who have turned on him. But he explains what they've said to him, that Trump is a special case and all civil liberties surrounding Trump. I'm not justifying this. I'm just explaining what Dershowitz says. And he's not justifying it, of course. He's pushing back against it. He has been told repeatedly that all civil liberty and constitutional stuff and everything has to be suspended because Trump is different. And he cites in the book the times in American history where these same people or people on the other side have cited fill in the blank, this is different. And he goes through American history, the suspension of habeas corpus by Lincoln. He goes through the Palmer raids by Hoover in the 1920s. This is different. Then he goes through the incarceration and of the Japanese Americans in World War II. They said, this is different. Goes through the McCarthy era. He goes, this is different. And they did the same thing every single time. This is different than anything our Constitution could handle. And they believe that the laws and the Constitution are abstract enough and strong enough to survive them violating them for the sake of getting Trump. And that's the essence of the book, that his people, or whoever his people were, feel that the Constitution and the Republic is strong enough to violate the Constitution and civil liberties and laws and have it rebound after they get Trump. So he believes this is insane, and rightfully so. And now they've gotten him. But one of the projects he talks about specifically is the 65 project. The 65 project is a group of legal scholars and law professors and heads of law firms. Most of the top are women, of course, one from Utah, one from somewhere else. And in their goals is the destruction of any lawyers who help Trump. This is unbelievable. This is the craziest thing in the book. The 65 Project, you read this here when you go there, it is unabashedly designed to go after and disbar any lawyer who helps Trump. And that's why I didn't understand this. And that's why Trump has ended up with these beauty queens as lawyers, because every major lawyer has gotten cold feet about helping Trump. The ones who have suffered enormous ramifications. So he's ending up with people who are these beauty queens as lawyers, doing the best they can with what they have. But this is not the A-list of attorneys. Dershowitz talked about the damage done to him when he defended Trump during the first impeachment, how they went batshit crazy, 65 Project filed dismissal charges against him at the Bar Association. This is one of the most dangerous things I've ever seen. The equal of which would be Rob Reiner's Russia project, where he had all the CIA heads on part of his Russia project. But this thing is even more dangerous because they physically file grievances to destroy the lawyers who are helping Trump and other lawyers who have filed things to get them disbarred. And they're not ashamed to say it. It's in that website. I was shocked to learn. I didn't know about the 65 Project, but the book is called Get Trump. Highly recommended, from a guy who has flaws and doesn't see this as an aberrational situation the way the rest of us do. He just thinks this is the hard left, which he doesn't agree with, going after Trump. He doesn't see a Marxist takeover. He doesn't see a lot of the things that we see. He just thinks this is another historical blip on the American historical radar. I disagree, but at least Dershowitz is somebody on the other side who realizes that they're out of control on the hard left. So you got to give him credit for that. And they've destroyed him. So, and he's obviously against Harvard now and wants gay removed from the presidency of Harvard. And there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of synergy between us and Dershowitz politically that you normally wouldn't see with someone on the left.
True. It's a weird parallel, but I feel like he's treating the Democratic Party like you're treating California. Like, you're not leaving. You're going to get in there. You're going to fight. Victor Davis Hanson, he's kind of that way as a Democrat, saying, no, this is my
to his credit. I mean, there's others who've said the same thing. Look what happened to Robert Kennedy. He left. He said the same thing that he said until he left. Remember when he first started running, RFK Jr.? Oh,
yeah.
This is my party. This is my family's party. Whoop, I'm out of here. Apparently, he has gotten on the ballot. He's up on the big scoreboard, Hunley, which is another story we were going to discuss. He's up on the big board. He's got Utah. Robert F. Kennedy, who is supporting RFK Jr. in Utah.
He's the Utah Storm, Mark. The Utah Storm. That's what I'm calling it. Trademark.
Well, I think that there's some chicanery involved by the Romney anti-Trumpers to help this through. I can't believe that this guy this is the only state he can get on the ballot. Freaking red Utah. I think there might be some sort of operation going on there.
Okay. I'm always aware of money. Sorry, but Al Gonzalez from the shush table saying he's having trouble posting.
Hunley, what's going on? They're going to shut us out here. We're going to be eating catnip burgers. Anyway, to get back to this thing with RFK Jr., he's on the big board. He's got Utah, and he came out in support of Trump not being removed from the ballot in California. He tweeted a lot of stuff, and I saw an episode of him where he's trying to go for 50 states on the ballot. Even he said the last 3 states are really tough to get on. And I thought, what is it, like Rhode Island, Alabama, and Mississippi? No, it's California, New York, and Texas. He said that's going to be almost impossible to get on board. So it's the 3 biggest states in the union, and he said they've got the toughest requirements. The other ones are basically easy. You get 12,000 or some 15,000 signatures. You pay the fee, and you get a free Knish. But good luck with Texas and New York and Florida and California, RFK. I mean, but you're on the ballot in Utah. I don't know where this campaign goes. He's kind of disappeared off the radar the past month or two. You know what I mean? It was every day, and now it's like,
yeah, it's there's just not much there. I mean,
there's nothing there. I mean, you're hearing more from Joe Manchin sticking his foot into the thing, and Cornel West, and some of the others. I mean, Cornel West came out last week and said that Biden may pull an LBJ before the convention and be replaced by some. Gee, I said, whoa, somebody's watching the show. This is crazy. We've got Cornel West watching the show. Tip of the hat.
Yeah, well, what a great fan to have. Let me go through some super chats because money has come in, and I definitely want to acknowledge it. We've got Adam Sibsey as a new member, Bob Tranquilli with a super sticker. Thank you very much. BTK, which is always a creepy name. Women and crazy are related.
Absolutely.
And then Justin Wright here. I worked detainee ops in Iraq. My year of interacting with them told me that they are programmed from birth to believe the imams. When I got home, I wanted to go back because the West is willfully idiotic and worse. Well,
thanks for your service. First of all, I mean, the same thing has been said about the state of Germany in 1933. The German people, it was a military state. It was a military state. The people were not just on the sidelines watching. They were all in on this. I mean, when Eisenhower famously marched the surrounding neighborhoods into Dachau to see the damage that was done, he forced them at gunpoint. And when you go to Dachau, you could see how close the houses are to the camp itself. There is no buffer. It completely in the middle of the town of Dachau is the concentration camp. So, I mean, they were smelling the burning flesh, every single day in the town of Dachau. And that's why, he marched them in there, Eisenhower, to his credit, so they would never forget. Apparently, the students of the United States have never remembered. So there's nothing to forget. Where this is going with these pitched battles against NYPD in New York is anyone's guess, because they are just going to escalate this. And I think you're going to be seeing a number of personal jihads, unfortunately, in the United States, like you see in Europe, where people take it on their own to begin doing stuff. And I don't want to say what, because we've experienced this, previously in this country. And I think with that open border, you're going to be seeing more and more Muslim personal jihads on their own around the United States during this 2024 season.
There's a worry about that, especially that Iran has already seeded a lot of folks in the area.
Yeah.
Hezbollah, I think, has infiltrated along with others. And
why not? Why wouldn't you do
they're
it?
being activated, but
why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah, it's.
I mean, the guy's letting them in. He's sending money to Iran to fund Hamas. I mean, I've never seen anything quite like this. Where the president of the United States and his party is shifting. What's going on is they're trying to shift the allegiance to the Saudis to Iran. That's in a generic answer to what's going on. The Biden administration and Obama's administration wanted to be aligned with Tehran as opposed to Riyadh. You could debate that all you want, but that's what's happening right now. That's why they're funding them. And Iran's going, thank you very much. We're going to send our little packages to our allies to commit violence in the Middle East. So the blood is really on Joe Biden's hands.
Yeah, somehow I don't think he's that worried about it. Sadly.
Well, he's in St. Croix in the Virgin Islands, and I've been to St. Croix. You could really space out down there. It is so gorgeous. I went down there for a month. I stayed a year.
Yeah, well, you know what? Biden is, he's doing his part, Mark. After all, he'll just declare January Human Trafficking Prevention Month.
Well, maybe he wants to see the movie.
Yeah, there you go. They want to see the movie, and that's a solution. We'll just declare it on a month. That's how we care. It's like every other month in the world we have, women's history, Black history. Has anybody ever questioned the fact that Black History Month is the shortest month?
Yeah, it's been brought up it's been brought up a lot, but to our credit, there's a white pill moment in Huntington Beach, California, which is Surf City, a little bit below me here in LA, down in Orange County. Their city council voted to ban Black History Month, Women's Month, and Pride Month officially from the city of Huntington Beach. Look for Newsom to launch a ground attack if he ever comes back to the state against Huntington Beach, which he has been to war with them before when they wouldn't go along with certain aspects of the lockdown. He threatened to cut off state funding to the city. I'm sure he'll be suing them if he ever comes back to the state of California from his world tour of running as the shadow president of the United States. So Huntington Beach, tip of the hat to Huntington Beach. I mean,
yeah, you shared that with me. I think their stance also is not that they're against anything. They're saying this is all BS. We need to have American-centric events.
Yeah.
That's it. No, not like they're upset with women. They're not upset with Black. They're just saying this is bullshit. Let's just have American things and celebrate American stuff.
Well, hey, I don't think it's going to be perceived like that on the left. But nice try, Huntley.
Well,
so there's a guy.
Why would they like the truth now?
There's a guy named Jason Rantz, who you may have seen on Tucker a bunch. He's a radio guy out of Seattle. Grew up in L.A. He was on radio when he was 15 years old in L.A. Now he lives in Seattle, and he says he's not going to cut and run. I just literally saw him on C-SPAN saying, they asked him the same question, what are you doing in Seattle? And he says, I don't want to be run out of my own city. And he says, I'm not going to cut and run. He's got a new book out that I ordered and I recommend called What's Killing America Inside the Political Left's Destruction of Our Cities. And he talks about the actual facts of how these cities are being destroyed and what could be done about it. So I like to give a shout out to that book, which I'm going to read over the weekend. He was just on C-SPAN promoting the book before the show. So I was watching that and he read the introduction to the book. But one of the things he talked about was harm reduction. And some of the things that they come up with for harm reduction, Hunley really couldn't look at. I sent it.
Yeah, can we check out? Can I check out? I'll get back to you. You can tell everybody because I really, I'm getting this notes from Mark. I'm like, what? No.
You can't handle the truth. I walk this wall so men like you could sleep at night, Hunley.
I don't need you.
No. But anyway, so Jason Rantz, you know who he is. He was on Tucker a lot when he was on Fox, and has his first book out, which I would strongly recommend we support and give a look at. He seems like a balanced guy, he's kind of in the middle, but obviously he says he's a Republican, so he's stuck in he's been going to all these town hall meetings, and what he says is, interestingly enough, that the left will flood these town hall meetings with their nonstop people who are their professional advocacy groups. But on the right, these people are taking their kids to high school events and they're home, and they can't, they don't have the time to do what the left is doing at the local level. I don't know if he's got an answer to that or what, but he went to a lot of town hall meetings for a lot of different subjects, and he saw this consistent pattern of the left flooding the zone, so to speak, in these different town hall situations.
Yeah, and Mark shared that this is not only here, but it's up with Toronto. Yeah, and I was introduced by Mark to something called booty bumps. I can't share the full graphic, or we'll get pinged on YouTube.
This is another example of harm reduction, and he says the left brilliantly comes up with these phrases, which we're not unaware of, that Rand talks about. Who could be opposed to the phrase harm reduction? What are you, pro harm? And what's the opposite? Harm increasing? So for those at home, it's they send out these kits on how to get high, kits to use with needles, with pipes, with lighters. I mean, it's just crazy. And this thing, the booty bumps thing, which I was not aware of, shows you how to inject drugs into
your posterior.
Well, into a canal that's not just the posterior; it's in the canal in the posterior. in detail in that cartoon with a kit on how to do this. It's absolutely astounding. This is beyond anything I've ever seen in my life. I'm only telling you so you could be aware of it and be as sick as Hunley and I are from looking at that stuff. But Jason Rance talks about it as how crazy their harm reduction policy has completely failed, as has their apartment for every single homeless person program. And he goes into detail about the Salt Lake City project, where Salt Lake City claimed initially that they had solved their homeless problem by giving everyone an apartment. And this became the model like 8 years ago to start this housing first projects all around the country. And it turns out that the Salt Lake City thing was a lie, that it didn't cure homelessness, and there's tons of homeless in Salt Lake City. Big shock.
Yeah,
Big shock.
Well, now I guess January 1st, we're going to be going into minimum wage increases going in effect all over the place. What could go wrong there? It's like, okay, so God help any teenagers ever getting a job anymore.
Well, never mind God help any teenagers. 1,500 Pizza Hut drivers were laid off this week by Pizza Hut in Southern California, immediately losing their employment thanks to Gavin Newsom. There is a direct effect to these $20 an hour minimum wage jobs. Pizza Hut announced that you're now going to have to use Uber Eats or, Gab, what's it called?
DoorDash.
DoorDash to get your pizza from Pizza Hut. 1,500 drivers who work for Pizza Hut were let go because of this massive increase in the demand. And to solidify, the bill was just about fast food chains in Southern California and in California. So the effects were immediately felt, and Pizza Hut did what they said they would have to do. And Newsom couldn't care less. And these families now have had the worst Christmas of their lives because of this douchebag.
You know, my favorite thing that happened, though, out of all these bullshit laws and things that get put into effect is, remember the gig economy law that went into effect? I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, I'm well aware of it.
That was my favorite case.
That was a good
karma.
one. Loretta Gonzalez, I think, out of San Diego. She had worked for the unions and became I think it was Loretta Gonzalez, a Latina woman. She's the one who later told Musk to go fuck himself and get out of the state of California. And he said, okay, he went to Texas, costing the state of California thousands and thousands of jobs. She was the one that created the gig economy thing because she did not like non-union truck drivers, which is
Uber drivers. I know
the Uber driver was not really the focus. They have been battling because of the Teamsters for decades in the state of California, who she represented, to do whatever damage they could to non-union independent truckers. That's who put her in office. And that gig economy thing was designed to destroy non-union truckers. It overlapped into Uber and to Lyft and caused damage there, but it also did immense damage in Hollywood, where people took these gigs to get by while they were pursuing their careers in the acting and directing and in the arts. So she single-handedly in one bill created so much damage across the board. It shows you what these incredibly damaging these ideological bills are.
What my favorite part about this was, it was like the perfect karmic backlash, because all of these online news places, TechCrunch, all of them.
That's right.
Well, guess what? They were all gig workers and they lost their jobs. It was a beautiful karmic moment. And what I loved was all the people online who said, learn to code.
Yeah.
Remember the learn to code bit?
Look, I lost a bunch of jobs, little gig economy, because of that thing. I know every single person I know in Hollywood lost jobs over that thing.
Yeah, but you weren't writing about celebrating it. That's the thing. These people are celebrating. They're like, yeah, give it to the man. Those evil Uber drivers, those stupid scumbag. Get me in. It's like, you're the scumbags now. Enjoy your just desserts.
Yeah.
Speaking of enjoying, though, got some Rumble rants here. Alan from New York, our favorite state trooper. Eric, here is a rounding error from Rumble to help out, and it's $200.
What?
Yeah, and he's
Is that
busting my
legal?
balls. Yeah, it is, but he's busting my balls because people are always like, why don't you just leave YouTube and only do Rumble?
Why don't you leave California and live in Utah?
Right. Well, and I'm just like, well, because when it comes to ad dollars and things like that, when we get them, the amount on Rumble is a rounding error. So this is him poking at me. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for the support. Freddie65 gave us a rant. $10. Best wishes for 2024. And thank you for the entertainment and wisdom. Thank you, Freddie. Tommy Jekyll, which I think is a cool name. $25. Thanks, gentlemen, for all your toil in all platforms. I'm subscribed on Locals, but find it easier to do the payroll here. I guess Monday, Rumble will be back in for its 20%. Yeah, apparently, Rumble for 2023 was giving 100% of rants to the creators, not even taking off the 20%.
Whoa.
And then Lunch Lady 78 gave us $20 saying, thanks, listen every week. So thank you.
What happens on Monday? The party's over?
2024. So they were for 2023, they were foregoing the 20% to Rumble and just giving 100% to creators to try to bring more over to the platform.
I'm hearing that the Epstein logs are being released Monday too.
They're supposed to be.
What is that about? What is that about?
The flight logs.
Why Monday? Why is the 1st of January? What is?
I just arbitrary date, I guess. It has to be released by the.
Who's releasing this?
The judge.
Oh, it's like a court case. I see.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
The judge on the case did that. So.
Whoa. We'll see who's on that list. Checking it twice. Who was naughty and nice.
It's
wow.
Good. That's going to be very, very interesting.
That's an interesting list. Let's talk about that next Friday. But we have to talk about the passing of Tommy Smothers of the Smothers Brothers, who died of cancer this week. One of the first satirical duos that ever had their own. Eventually canceled by CBS because it went anti-war, but a really, really deceptive show that ran as a variety show on CBS for a number of years. The Smothers Brothers had on all kinds of people who never would have been on television. Tommy, of course, and Dick Smothers. Dick playing the smart one was not as smart as Tommy playing the idiot. Tommy was the smarter of the two brothers, but he always said, Mom always liked you best, which was his tagline. A show that everybody watched, but most people watched for a number of years on CBS. But the ironic thing that it was announced by the National Comedy Center, and I'm going like, what the hell is the National Comedy Center? Where is that? In Canton, Ohio? I mean, the death was announced by something called the National Comedy Center, and I just thought that was kind of funny. I never heard of it. I never heard of it before. What is I hope they announce my death, the National Comedy Center, when I die, whatever they are.
I don't know. You know who got to start with the Smothers Brothers too in the writing room? Steve Martin.
Oh yeah, Steve Martin was. Yeah, they had a bunch of celebrity guys who made it big who were in the writers' room. Yeah.
Yeah, Martin went from working at Disneyland as a magician. To Smothers Brothers, and he's an interesting character too because the banjo shtick isn't just a shtick; he's like a world-class banjo player.
Well, don't forget the Smothers Brothers were a musical duo too, playing Hungry Eye and other clubs with Mort Saul and others in the 1950s and into the 60s. So they were musically a duo also.
Well, on a nice note, your friend Stephen Gibb had posted on Twitter. I shared it with you. His father at the Lincoln Center.
It was a Kennedy Honors thing.
Kennedy Center, sorry.
Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. Yeah, it's weird that there was some other feeding of Barry Gibb in London that Steve went to. I kind of knew this. He was on this little tour, but yeah, that was kind of interesting that Steve was giving this award to his dad at the Kennedy Center. They were, in a lot of ways, I mean, they came from Australia. I mean, so, and then eventually worked their way to London and then to the United States. They live in Miami Beach for many, many years. His father, the surviving member of the Bee Gees, but also the brain and talent of the Bee Gees is his dad, Barry Gibb, who has written some of the most iconic American pop songs that we have. And when he was in town a couple of years ago, Steve and I went to Steve and I. He was playing the Hollywood Bowl, the Bee Gees, and they had holograms of the other brothers. And Steve was in the band playing guitar. He's got his own heavy metal bands that he plays with Steve, and it was surreal, to be honest. I mean, because the Hollywood Bowl was sold out, and they just ran the gamut of Bee Gees hits. But they had holograms of the other Bee Gees who had passed on, and it was really strange.
I think that's cool. It
actually worked. It actually worked. I mean, what a strange multimedia event.
I'm just thinking the band, though. To me, the Bee Gees had the craziest arc ever, because they started out and then they became very popular. They were a big band, and then they were on the outs. Then they got rediscovered. Somehow then they got tied to disco. They weren't technically disco, but they were married to it because of Saturday Night Live, Saturday Night Fever. And then everybody was burning their albums in baseball stadiums, to being the most hated band in America, to now he's being honored at the Kennedy Center. I mean, not everybody has had that kind of up, down.
There's a great documentary on HBO about the Bee Gees that I highly recommend, on the history of the Bee Gees, that shows you the influence of them in American pop culture and world music culture, for sure. The Bee Gees not a huge influence on me, but I mean, just a huge influence musically. It's just an astounding thing. I was working on a film project with John Badham, and he had directed Saturday Night Fever. He replaced somebody at the last minute, didn't know anything about disco himself. And Saturday Night Fever with John Travolta was an article based on an article in New York Magazine about this subculture in Brooklyn of this Italian Bensonhurst and Bay Ridge that became disco with line dancing. And that became the Bible for the movie Saturday Night Fever. And Badham came on at the last minute. Badham had done Bingo Long and the Traveling All-Stars with Richard Pryor, a baseball picture, and he was attached to my baseball picture about Alabama Pitts. And we went up to HBO for this pitch meeting, and this girl comes out and sees me, and she's, "I'm sorry for the delay, blah, blah, blah." We're sitting in the lobby for like 25 minutes. She comes out and apologizes. And she looks at John Badham, and she says, "And you are?" And he says, "I'm John Badham." And she says, what is your connection?" He says, "Well, I'm the director, or hopefully the director of this project." And she says, "What are your credits?" And he said, it'll take us too long for me to go through them. Let's just go in and have the meeting," which I thought was a great, classy line of all time by somebody to a knucklehead at HBO.
Yeah, no doubt. Let me go through some super chats here. Lisa Franceschi, $10. Yo. Thank you, Lisa. Lisa's been watching for a while.
Big Stallone fan. Lisa's a big Stallone fan.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. You forget how great he is. I was watching the Tulsa King with someone. He is, you took him for granted for so many years because of Rambo and Rocky and everything else. I mean, he created those characters. He wrote those scripts. He refused to give them up. And he is such a multiple hyphen force that it's going to be a dark day when he passes, because he has influenced American culture so enormously that people forget how enormous Sylvester Stallone is in American pop culture.
Well, I think that's a sign of someone who is truly enormous. I don't know how to say it. It's like if they just become a part of your life and you forget about them.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. And not many people have created not one, but two major franchise.
Major.
I mean, actually, no, three, because he did the Expendables. So even that was like a second.
That's cool.
Oh, no, hugely popular.
Yeah. No, I agree.
But see, BTK, can the government douchebags soon be arrested and imprisoned, or will they claim
not for $5? They're not. Not for $5, they won't be. But yeah, the idea is sound. And the government douchebags, that's like a band, a punk act band or something from England.
So, by the way, which vacuum am I getting?
You're going to get the Shefflet Lewitt vacuum cleaner, or when they claim a lack of knowledge about everything. By the way, that's funny. I don't know. It's kind of a broad question. I mean, I think that my new idea is to get Obama to testify in Congress under oath and to just say, look, we got to bring you in here. We want you under oath. Give him a subpoena. Make him duck the subpoena or make him perjure himself about his involvement in the Biden administration. What does he know? When did he know it? What's your involvement? Make him get under those lights. If he wants to play a shadow president, force him to come into Congress as a regular citizen and not be an ex-president, because clearly he didn't get the memo of what ex-presidents are supposed to do. They're supposed to build homes in the woods like Jimmy Carter or play golf like Reagan did. They're not supposed to have
painting like W. Yeah.
Or painting like W. They're not supposed to have a brownstone across the street from the White House running a shadow government with a puppet Biden. Someone has got to get his black ass into a seat in Congress and grill this son of a bitch under oath. And that's my wet dream for 2024.
All right. Pasha is saying quiet towns, Tulsa, Omaha, and St. Paul, Minnesota. They really do roll up the sidewalks at 6 p.m. here.
Oh, St. Paul also. Well, apparently at night they are running around with sabers, Somalis who are neighborhood police forces now. So I don't know what's going on in St. Paul, but yeah,
Maybe
Tulsa.
Minneapolis.
Well, they're twin cities.
I know. Maybe that's the evil twin. I don't know.
I don't know, but yeah, Tulsa was like. I mean, the other one, Omaha. I was like, whoa, this is some weird city.
Todd Gavin, I've done 5 films with Mel. He is a good guy. Truth.
Absolutely. No friend of the Jews, but still, you can't Get the Gringo was one of my, I also recommend Get the Gringo. Mel Gibson stars in it. And I think he wrote it or he stars in it and directed it, one or the other, or produced it. Not a complete Mel Gibson project, but a fantastic movie of Mel Gibson, a white guy being in a Mexican prison. And also, obviously, Apocalypto, one of the most underrated Mel Gibson films of all time.
No, he did Passion of the Christ with Caviezel.
Right, but yeah, that was huge. I'm saying there's a couple that are that people don't talk about.
Sergeant Willie saying Barnes said all Trump had to do was ask him. This is people saying, "Hey, what about your buddy Trump? Why isn't he, or your buddy Barnes? Why isn't he working with Trump? Instead of just."
I don't know. I don't. So, I don't know what's going on. He's got his own life, I guess.
Mark, you got to quit calling them beauty queen lawyers. Just saying.
No, I'm going to keep saying it just because you said that. How about that? How tough does that sound? Mark didn't do what I said. How does that hurt you now? These beauty queen lawyers that, and I don't begrudge the lawyers. I begrudge this 65 project that has forced Trump to use B-level beauty queen lawyers. I think it's a shorthand for something. I'm not sure.
All right.
I will listen to you. I'll never say it again.
Scott Benbow, what are your thoughts on the lady who made the fall of the cabal? I guess she disappeared and then was found dead. Janet Ossebard.
I don't know anything about the fall of the cabal. I don't know who she is. So I don't have any thoughts on it.
That's a short one.
Right.
George Erickson with $50. Thank you.
Big George.
Providing Trump survives the gauntlet of dishonest election process, a corrupt C and GOP that is loyal, never Trumper, etc., and is not taken out. Who can he trust to turn to for loyal support in the Trump administration?
Well, I mean, there's Stephen Miller. There's people like Bannon. There's people, there's a handful of people who are Trump loyal. Michael Flynn, obviously. There's people who he can trust. I mean, that's got to be his circle. I mean, the cabinet is kind of meaningless because those are like figureheads. They're not really involved in anything. You could put anybody at the Department of Energy, for Christ's sakes. Mm-hmm. If you don't like what they're doing one particular day, you can shit can them. But the inner circle has got to be protected with these loyalists. You know what I mean?
And you know who they are.
Yeah,
because they're the ones who are still supporting him and losing everything. Like, how about Dershowitz for attorney general? Or, these are people who have suffered personally.
The people have suffered.
Standing, by him in the darkness. He knows who they are.
He knows who they are. Just go say to the people who went to jail. Ask Paul Manafort what Paul Manafort's crimes were. How they took away his homes, his ill-gotten gains before he ever went to trial. How they went through his taxes and denied every single deduction he ever took in taxes that were 10 years old, and then convicted him of tax fraud. Ask Paul Manafort what it was like. Ask Roger Stone. Ask some of the people who, Ask a former mayor of New York City named
Rudy
Giuliani what he has suffered.
Yeah. I mean, that would be interesting if Trump, comes in. The first thing he does is say, "Pardon everybody here," and then now you got this job, you got that job, and just.
I would take the people out of January 6th prison and give them jobs
as well. Yes.
Yeah,
no doubt. Pablo Papano, Cornel West is a Muppet. He kind of looks like one.
Cornel West has been around so long that he has been on the wrong side of history for so long that it's kind of like consistently wrong, consistently on the wrong side of history. I mean, here's a guy who is operated in the Marxist lane, where he should have been in Princeton teaching a course on Marxism, which is what he used to do. And, now he's running for president, which is fine. I could care less. But I mean, the fact of the matter is the guy's a joke. I'll just put it that way.
Yep.
Brother Cornell.
Yeah. Knucklefist, an awesome 2023 for AUS. Hang on, 2024 is going to be one hell of a white knuckle thrill ride. Thank you and Happy New Year.
Yeah, the portion of 2024 that I'm worried about the most is from November 4th to January 20th of 2025, because that's when these losers are going to do draconian shit, because they're not going to go out quietly in the night. The crazy crap is going to be after Trump's victory in the election on November 4th, the next day, that night, and they will encourage riots and looting. But that's immediately after, and that'll be physically in the streets with BLM and Antifa in the streets. What they're going to do behind the scenes is anybody's guess, and Katie barred the door for that period of time. It used to be longer. That a president would have to wait to take office. It was in March. Mm-hmm. They moved it back to January 20th to avoid abuse of power. And now still you've got a lame duck time slot of November, December, January. It's a long time to do damage, and they will do damage in that 90 days. Executive order, executive order, executive order. And that's if we're lucky. Now I'm hearing from Catherine Harridge, at CBS, she used to be on Fox, that there is a huge false flag in the wind now, military false flag, that's being highly chatted about in American military circles. Not that they're saying it's a false flag, but that Biden, the only thing he can do now is to do a wag the dog situation during the upcoming presidential election year. To try to save his reelection chances. So she has been pretty accurate as a intelligence reporter for a number of years on Fox, now works for CBS, where I understand she's been kind of bottled up. But nevertheless, she was on the tube talking about she's hearing a lot of chatter about a false flag or a wag the dog situation coming down the pike. It could be Taiwan, it could be, what's going on in Ukraine, it could be the Middle East, but they are not going to go quietly. The least they could do is they wag the dog or false flag. The least they could do to maintain their presidency.
It's sad. It's going to make us look back at a removal of W's from keyboards as charming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those were some high school hijinks by people who were just losing their jobs. This is some big game Gulf of Tonkin crap.
God. JM, a bunch of Bushites filed a brief to say Trump shouldn't have immunity as an ex-president. More BS to come, I imagine. Thanks and Happy New Year.
It's not a question of him having immunity. I mean, there's
all presidents.
I mean, again, as Dershowitz said, they try to say this case is different. Like the Japanese internment by their favorite president, FDR, 150,000 or so Japanese Americans interned in concentration camps in the desert outside of California. They said this was different. There's no way the American Constitution could survive having Japanese American citizens living in California. They said this is different. People protested about it, but they did it anyway. This is similar to what's happening with Trump. They believe when push comes to shove, they could do away with civil liberties in a narrow focused situation like Trump or the Palmer raids or habeas corpus or the Japanese internments. There's a long, and the right did it with McCarthy, so it's on both sides.
True. Trey Ellswick, we must defend Trump and the Constitution and keep our powder dry. Stand with Israel.
Oh, thank you for that. He also talks about payback, which I long thought, this is the Dershowitz book I'm talking about, Get Trump. He talks about this as payback, which I've been saying for a while for Bush v. Gore, where Scalia simply said, get over it, and assigned the election to George Bush. They did not get over that. And people think this is coming out of nowhere. These people have long memories, and 20 years ago is not that long for them. They look at this as payback, what they're doing now for a conservative judge named Antonin Scalia, saying that he declared, and Dershowitz talks about this, any ruling by the Supreme Court that says this time only is invariably going to be wrong. When there's no precedent to something where they narrowly say we're going to rule on this one time only, grab your hat, because it's going to be a bizarre ruling. And he says that about the Scalia ruling with the Supreme Court about Bush v. Gore out of Florida, stopping the recount and awarding essentially the election to George Bush. The left never got over it, despite what Scalia said.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
If 9/11 didn't happen, it would be even more vocal. J.A. Will. American history encompasses everything. Crispus Attucks at Boston Massacre. Peter Salem shoots Mayor Pitcairn at Bunker Hill. Wentworth Cheswell, Road Will, Paul Revere, many people involved in the U.S. experience. Yes, that's history. I'm not sure where you're going with it, but I agree.
I don't know where that's going, but what we're referring to here is modern American history, as opposed to the Revolutionary War. There might be some differences. I don't know. Yes, it's all American history in the generic sense, but there have been a lot of changes in the country. How about Nikki Haley not understanding the cause of the Civil War yesterday up in New Hampshire? How about that question? Where she rambled on about, was she born in India, by the way?
She is Indian. No, she wasn't born in India, or she couldn't run for president.
Okay. Well, that should stop a lot of people.
But that's, by the way, though, that's part of this thing. Vivek was talking about her in that video. Yeah. Specifically.
Right.
And it's like an Indian showdown.
Yeah. Showdown of the Indians. It's a battle of the meat samosas. She didn't know the cause of the Civil War, which is kind of an interesting problem there. That was weird. Like I said, I've said repeatedly, there has to be a test for public office, no matter what the office is. I've said this to you since I met you. There's got to be a written test for any public office. I'm sorry. We can't just assume that they know this stuff.
Well, it's especially odd. And, she is a South Carolina governor formerly.
Okay.
So where was the first shot in the Civil War? Anyway.
She had no idea. She didn't know where it was. So, I mean, it's scary. Not that she's going to win.
Yeah, but they're trying hard. Conrad, Mark, what are the strongest pieces of evidence to you that someone other than Oswald, who killed Kennedy?
What do you mean, someone other than Oswald?
Well, we've discussed it a few thousand times.
But, welcome to the show, Conrad. I'm glad you could stop by. Thanks for the 20. Can you address the painted curbs? I mean, we've already addressed this. You just weren't around. I called you over and over and over again on your cell phone to get this thing resolved with you, and yet you keep going on about it. There's a book called Chokeholds. It just came out. You may want to take a look at it. It's the 10 strongest pieces of evidence, written by Paul Blau and James DiEugenio, two friends of the show. But the yellow curb markings is relatively new to me the past couple of years. It could be into a shooting zone. I'm not really sure how the yellow curb markings worked, but they did come and go pretty quickly. Just another weird piece of the puzzle. And we've discussed multiple.
We've got about 10 Q&As too, if you want a shortcut.
Yeah. In fact, you could show up at the Q&A, but you're too busy to go off your fat ass and show up. We did one last week, which was a lot of fun. I think we should do Q&As about specific people from now on. to narrow the focus. You know what I mean? Instead of broad generalities, we could just do General Walker's involvement just in Q&As, Eric. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
we can. Yeah. Or
That seems to be more refined and works closer to, you know what I mean, to get away from the broadness of the whole thing.
yeah, I can. I mean, we'll definitely look at it down the road because we're going to be doing more LBJ anyway too, and other characters. Greg McAllister, first saw your Allen, Texas presentation and now can't stop watching. Love the show. Thanks for all the work. Well, thank you.
Don't censor me because I don't know what happened, what was taken out of that. But there's another version that Eric has where I am uncensored on our own platform,
which has been demonetized, of course.
But that version has a
few more minutes.
It's not a question of length; it's a question of content.
Yeah. Well, there's rumors there's even more out there, but Sea Wave, Doctor, the Door, Steppenwolf, Iron Butterfly on the. Well, that's cool.
And the God of the Vita, we talked about the bass.
I didn't know that was on Smothers Brothers.
Oh, everybody was on Smothers Brothers. Yeah.
Well, I always thought of Ed Sullivan, like especially the Doors because of that showdown and things. So interesting.
Right. Sullivan didn't have it was also CBS. I mean, they're both on CBS.
Makes sense. Cecilia Helm, you guys are awesome. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you, Cecilia. Pat M, based on Mark's shadow government rant, here is my Happy New Year super chat. The best to all of us in 2024.
Well, it's not even a rant. I mean, the guy is running a shadow government over there. I mean, I've never heard anything like this in American history. If somebody knows, maybe Jefferson, I don't know. Maybe there's something in the Revolutionary War times where a president ran a shadow government. But this, in modern times, we are not going to have a smooth transition of power. Let me put it this way. We didn't have it the last time when they rioted in the streets when Trump was elected, and we're not going to have it this time. So all that stuff is going to dissipate. But I don't remember a situation like this where the president has not gone away and continues to be in the public light regarding policy and other things, and behind the scenes, obviously, doing weird crap.
You mentioned the shadow government. The only thing I can think of is Roosevelt, Teddy, and how I think he was trying to have a shadow government, and Taft is his own person, and that pissed off Teddy, and that's why he ran again, because Taft wasn't his puppet.
Well, I mean, you could still write editorials and do editorial stuff, but I'm talking about a full-on physical bunker that they've got over there with what's her name, his advisor, who was born in Tehran and speaks Farsi, running the operation, his advisor.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Owen Jones, new Grease song, Beauty Queen Lawyers.
New Grease? What is Grease? Oh, for the musical?
Grease, the musical. Yeah.
That's funny.
I like that. Wow, coming in hot, Todd Gavin. Thank you. I'm glad Mark mentioned Oprama. It's pretty damn obvious for the books, just reminding everyone Mark's books can be costly.
Yeah, there's a few back there that you see, and it's a recent costly ones, but if you want to contribute on Venmo, there's one I just got, which, we'll get into it next week, I think, when we do that show, but what?
Al got the super chat working.
Oh, so now it works, huh, Al?
Thank you, Al.
Look, I just want the key to the evidence room at that precinct up there in the Bronx and see what's in there.
No, he's talking about the anarchy coming tomorrow night.
Oh yeah, I wanted to address that. Thank you, Al, for the super. I wanted to address that, but I also wanted to, when I was working with, I was doing something with LAPD. I was interviewing this art detective, which is an episode you could see. Don Harisik, who was the one-man LA detective who dealt with art theft, high-end art theft here in LA. He took me into the evidence room, and it was like a kid in a candy store. And he would just show me different things on the detective's floor, what was in their evidence room, which is why I mentioned that to Al when we were at the Lancet conference. And I'd like to go into any evidence room because it's fascinating. It's like going into a museum of evidence, you know what I mean? And then he showed me these photos on the wall of LA city detectives who formed the Hat Squad in the 1930s and 40s to get rid of mobsters who were coming from Chicago. And they would meet him at the airport, beat the living shit out of him, and put him on the next plane. That's just because they wanted to control the operations here in LA, the crime and stuff during Mickey Cohen's run. And they were very close to Mickey Cohen. There was a lot of corruption at the time. But nevertheless, like I said, if you watch the coffee shop episode I did on the coffee shop that I worked in with my Uncle Louis, we used to close early. We're right on 42nd between 8th and 9th, closer to 9th, right off of Times Square on 42nd Street. And people would start coming for the Times Square celebration at 2 or 3 o'clock. We would close the store, the luncheonette, the coffee shop at around 2 o'clock on New Year's Eve and pull down the metal gates. And my uncle would see the people walking across and he would just go, "Here they come." And that was a signal to lock it up. And then the chaos would ensue. And this was 70s Times Square, which was a little bit different before they figured out how to really run this thing smoothly. I have no idea how they're going to pull this off Sunday night. This is going to be a real test of NYPD, whether they could pull this thing off. And I used to live on 45th and 8th. I lived in Manhattan Plaza for a while off of Times Square. But at one point I lived on 45th and 8th, and I could literally see the crowd. I had like a second floor apartment there with a girlfriend at the time. And I could literally watch that crowd out my window. And to see how NYPD grids this thing off in blocks to control it using sawhorses and control is an amazing thing to watch, and how they're able to pull this off. Hamas is coming. This one, everybody knows they're coming to disrupt this thing. They tried to disrupt the Christmas lighting of the tree at Rockefeller Center, and they will attempt to disrupt this. This is going to be an amazing test of the skills of NYPD to run this thing smoothly on New Year's Eve. This could be a real shit show. And, this group is now going to be the most hated group in America pretty soon. I think they're going for the award, these pro-Palestinian Hamas supporters. I told you about the IQ of these guys, right?
Yeah, earlier.
Oh yeah, this is the crowd that's going to come to Times Square. But there's millions of normal, not millions, but there's tens of thousands of normal people who show up for the festivities from Australia, from Europe, from around the world, and who just want to have a good time and stay in their little quadrant and drink and just celebrate the coming into the new year. It's going to be a real test to see if NYPD can pull this off.
By the way, the Art Detective show that Mark mentioned, highly recommend. It's a couple years old, but it's got quite a twist for an ending. So definitely check it out. There's a surprise ending. So
yes. This was a piece I wrote about for the Weekly, and I wanted to make a TV show out of it, like a Columbo type show. I don't even know if that's in the episode because that wasn't the point. I wrote a big article about Don Harisik being the art detective.
You did, and I did a Columbo bit that got ripped out because of YouTube and copyright claims, but
okay.
On Rumble, you can see it all. Yeah.
But the pitch meeting was the greatest pitch meeting, because I mentioned these pitch meetings last week. The pitch meeting of LAPD and me was one of the greatest pitch meetings of all time. Was this top brass sitting around a table grilling me like I was a suspect in a murder. Holy cow, was that great. Of course, they had a million questions, and I guess they only have one gear. They treat anyone from the outside as a suspect. And sure. I just went in trying to pitch this show, which would be a art heist detective show where there's from his own files that we would reenact these cases that he was able to solve, and maybe some unsolved cases. Bad mistake.
All right. $50 from Basil Beshkov. Thank you very much. Very generous over the year, and no question. Stephen McMahon. After Wilson's stroke during World War I, his wife and Colonel Woodhouse were the president. Yeah, but that wasn't a previous president controlling the next one.
Right.
I do remember that.
Yeah. That's a separate issue. I mean, you
had not great either.
No, you had with Donald Rumsfeld, the people around Reagan at the end were controlling his presidency, and his wife was involved in that, and he was senile, and he saw like the White House inside of the fishbowl, and he just said, what is that? What is that, mommy? what is that White House doing in that fish tank there? You know, he was already gone, but they, you know, were running the show.
All right, BTK. Bork attack by Ted Kennedy and Biden started the rift between the parties. Which kish do you like, the square or the open top round? If Yasha and I don't get Electrolux or GE vacuums, then a Kirby. Don't get me started on Kirby's.
I don't know about the Kirby's, but I like the square knish with deli mustard on top of it, the square potato knish. Now, there was the knish man who had hot potato and kasha knishes that delivered them to Levine's bungalow colony, who used to be in front of Bloomingdale's during the winter. But in the summer, he would come up to the Catskills and he would deliver hot potato and kasha knishes. Those were very thin knishes. Delicious by themselves, but the square knish is much more of the deli and knish stand in New York type of knish is referring to.
All right,
and the open round one. He's talking about the other kind.
And then for another day, I sold Kirby's door to door in dark.
What's Kirby? What's a Kirby?
It's a vacuum cleaner.
Oh, okay.
So I did a door to door sales with those.
Oh my God! Wow, that's
ugly
brutal.
Times. Camp Climax. Scalia always gets blamed for the 2000 election decision because of the get over it line, but it was really O'Connor who drove the decision, who needed to get back to Arizona to assist her sick husband.
That I mean, that's your opinion on that. I mean, Scalia was the leader, I think, ad hoc.
He probably wrote the opinion, right?
Yeah, I mean, Scalia was the one driving that train. You know, whether you agree with him or not. I mean, the get over line to these people was not easily accepted.
All right. Couple more Rumble rants and we're wrapping up. Seymour SR, Happy New Year to you guys. Thanks for the informative and entertaining shows. Mark, you are correct. The machete is one of the favorite weapons of the Twin City Somalis.
Right. Yeah. I understand that they have their own patrols at night now. With their own neighborhood patrols because the cops are laid off. If anybody knows about that, let me know. Hey, what about the Rand Paul Festivus thing? Remember that whole group? Oh, first of all, let me get to this. This is what I wanted to show you. I really want people to go out and get this issue before it disappears on eBay of Time Magazine. If you can get this and pass it on to your children, I think this would be well worth it. In this issue, which I have of my own, which I think you should definitely look on eBay and purchase for your kids. It is the February 15th to the 22nd, 2021 edition. And in here, it talks about the secret steal of the election. And it's why I am urging people to buy this on eBay so you could pass it on to your children, how the system actually worked to steal the election. It is all here in detail by themselves by Molly Ball, who wrote the article detailing how they stole the election. This is a keepsake. I strongly urge everyone to get on eBay and buy these if they're available. I don't even know what's out there, but that is something you should keep and pass on to your children and grandchildren so people know what happened based on their own confession in that article by Molly Ball. Now,
yeah, it's a secret history of the shadow campaign that saved the 2020 election.
Yeah. And not only that, it is not so secret because they reveal how they did it. Now, this interesting Festivus report, which Rand Paul comes out with every year, is fascinating because it breaks down some of the craziest government spending of the year, and he comes out with it every year. And some of these are just breathtaking. The Russian cats on a treadmill study funded by NIH, Eric, for $2.7 million. The DHS training employees to be their authentic best selves. USAID fund to tourism in Egypt, $6 million. Dr. Fauci's monkey business on NIH's Monkey Island, $33,200,000. A Barbie doll photo used to get COVID PPP funds. That was $800 million.
Portion of it.
A portion of it. Here are the Barbie photos, by the way. You'll see them there of people using those photos to get COVID PPP. Yeah, there they are. COVID PPP funding. There's a lot of good stuff in here.
You know what it sounds like?
But
Trafficant.
yeah, that's
When
what I
he
meant.
was reading
Yeah,
on-
no, absolutely. Dr. Fauci's transgender monkey study, $477,000. Gambling monkeys, 171,000. A lot of stuff with monkeys. Uh, graphic novel about disinformation. There's no budget on that. Anyway, you can print this out. It's about 30 pages or 25 pages or something. Another great keepsake. And just a last thing I wanted to mention about the leader in the Mexican presidential race is a far left communist Jewish woman named Claudia Scheinbaum, who's Mexican, who happens to be Jewish, who's a woke Mexican maniac who's leading. There she is down in the bottom there on the right. That's Claudia Scheinbaum. And she is a Mexican via Ukraine, Kiev, wherever the hell she came from originally, her family. But it looks like she is going to be the next. She was the mayor of Mexico City. So she's obviously not new to politics. But it looks like she may end up being the next president of Mexico. And they're all part of the same party, by the way, which is the party of the Democratic Revolution, 1989 to 2014. They're all socialists down there. So she's the leading communist candidate to take over Mexico and cause us some more grief out of Mexico.
All right. Rustus Android is annoyed with you. Scalise didn't stop the recount. He stopped the third recount.
Wait. Who's
Scalise?
Scalise was shot by a machine gun Bernie Sanders supporters playing softball. So it's hard for me to take serious what you're talking about. Who's Scalise?
I think he means Scalia.
How do you know what he means? He's criticizing me. He stopped the third recount. I wish people would remember what you're talking about because you're conflating two different people.
And George Erickson, I love your stuff. You both should be teaching teaching university, both political science and history. You're informed, educated, prescient, and courageous, but not courteous.
Well, not courteous. That's for sure. That's
keep
not
up the good work.
That's not our MO. Ben Savage is running for. Who's Ben Savage? Ben Savage is the brother of Fred Savage, and he's running for Adam Schiff's congressional seat. Just people should be aware of this. He's a Democrat, but he signed the term limits pledge of congressional term limits. So keep an eye on Ben Savage, his brother Fred. They're both actors, Ben and Fred Savage. Keep an eye on that particular candidacy. He was in 1993's. Touche. I'm just busting your balls. He was in Wild Palms in 1993, the Oliver Stone TV series, by the way.
Awesome. And okay, last Rumble rant.
What?
And
it's never going to work, Hunley.
Yeah, it's gonna have to. Alex Davy Duke, who we met in Vegas. Happy New Year, Eric and Mark. I agree with Mark regarding 2024. It's do or die for the USA. Nonetheless, I'm hopeful because of people like you and Mark. Look forward to Youngstown.
Yeah, can we say something about Youngstown?
That's why I left that for the last Rumble rant. There is
before I say something about Youngstown, I just want to say that the Palestinians were protesting at the World Trade Center yesterday in New York, yelling Ali Akbar at the World Trade Center. I just want you to know how far this thing has gone in terms of insanity. Something's going to break here. Somebody's going to get hurt, and it's not going to end well. But I'm sorry, go on. I just wanted to point that out, how sick and fucking crazy these people are.
True. We will be having a meetup in Youngstown on St. Patty's Day weekend.
Oh, they're just going to get drunk, Hunley. They're just going to vomit and get drunk and wear green.
Okay.
All right. Where are we going? What's the deal?
Youngstown, Ohio, March 15th through the 17th, something like that. It's St. Patty's Day weekend. Also, the weekend before the primary in Ohio. So
I see that DeWine, speaking of Ohio, when we go there, we have to address this governor DeWino, who refused to sign the anti-mutilation bill of transgendered youth. He refused to sign the bill that was passed by both houses in the Ohio state government, saying that the government cannot run these children's lives and they have to be mutilated. I was astounded. I don't know how this guy got elected. I'd like to focus on DeWine when we do get there at some point.
I think you'll be surprised on that a little because Barnes has a surprising opinion on that. So you'll have to check it out. It's an interesting opinion. Barnes is against legislation involving children as well. His stance, and it's a reasonable one, is that it goes across all things. If the state tells parents how to raise their children, then it's a bridge too far. Barnes's answer is that you write in the law that the children have the ability to sue for anything that's done to them as an adult, and then that'll cure it. He's concerned about religious organizations, et cetera, that you'll have the state taking away kids and making demands. So, what goes one way, which we like.
Well, this was a pretty narrowly tailored bill, specifically about transgender mutilation. I don't know about taking away kids from their parents, but at some point, other people have signed this thing, and it hasn't happened. So Barnes is living in a theoretical world, and some people are living in a physical world. Right now, it's about saving these children, and we could worry about these other ideological things a little bit later. Right now, these kids are being mutilated, and that's got to stop. And why DeWine signed it, or didn't sign it rather, is going to be part of his legacy for sure, because a lot of people narrowly tailored this bill to deal with the current situation of transgender mutilation.
Okay,
that's just my opinion. I'm not a lawyer, but I don't. Barnes has his opinion.
Well, I'm just saying that because look, we usually listen to Barnes on that. He's very much the right and everything else. So it's like, I think when something strikes me as, well, that's odd, I definitely am interested in why. Stephen McMahon, if the commies win in November, which country is a possible haven?
There is no possible haven. I mean, for us, it's always been Israel, but now that's under attack. I mean, because we have dual citizenship. You can't just go to one. Everybody's talking about, hey, go to Ecuador, go to Costa Rica. Good luck in these countries. You really have no protection from anything else that could possibly go wrong. You can't go to Europe. I mean, that's a shit show. Canada's a shit show. I mean, where do you go, Eric?
I have no idea, but Israel is already pretty socialist themselves, so it would be hard for me to. I mean, I can't go there, but with you'd be not happy politically there. I'm pretty sure.
Well, if Netanyahu is the head of the government, I would be happy politically. So I disagree there, and it is a right that I have as a Jewish American to go there. It's the Alamo for us. It's always been the Alamo. So to me, it's not a communist country if Netanyahu is running it.
Okay, well, yeah.
Or we could go to Moscow.
The ultimate irony, of course, where Snowden is. So that we are going to go to locals, as we put up earlier.
It never ends.
Hang out. Yeah, that's right. We're going to hang out for a few minutes there, answer any tips that have come by, see what's happening with the peeps. I definitely need my emotional distress dog here because of literature that Mark is sharing with me about booty bumps and things of that sort. So I need.
You should be aware of what's happening with your tax dollars. I mean, it's kind of outrageous.
It's kind of disgusting and disturbing. But for everybody else, I hope you follow us to locals. If you don't, that's fine. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful new year. And we will be seeing you, well, next year, next week, next month, or what we like to say, Tuesday.